inviting us to join you. So as Denise mentioned, I am a GW alum. I graduated with my MPA in 2017, and I'm currently working as a staffing manager at Tetra Tech ARD. We have offices in Arlington, Virginia, and Burlington, Vermont, but about 80% of our workforce is remote within the US now. So I connected with Denise when I was a student. She helped me tweak my CV so that it actually has things that I like to do, not just things that I'm good at. So highly recommend you take advantage of her advice while you're local. And it's really, really helped me with my career. So just quick overview of Tetra Tech ARD and Tetra Tech in general. So Tetra Tech is a really large company. We have 40 operating units, and we operate pretty independently. ARD, as I mentioned, is in Burlington, Vermont, and Arlington, Virginia. You may be familiar with the Kaizen Company and MSI. Those are two other international development units that have offices in DC. And actually, I did my capstone project with the Kaizen Company before they were acquired by Tetra Tech. So that's just kind of a quick introduction. I'd love to hand it over to you students to ask any questions. Let me know what technical areas you're interested in, and we can go from there. But it's a great place to work, good benefits. Like I said, mostly remote, so you can, like me, live in a warm climate and do international development work, which is something I always wanted to do. And COVID did open those doors, despite all the negative stuff that came with it. International development was pretty well poised to pivot.
So as Beth said, she really wants to make this as interactive as possible. So for all of you, this is your opportunities to ask about the type of work, opportunities that they have, culture, fit, how to apply, all different. And I will tell students, actually, when we did this I think it was last year, Beth, one of our students, who's now an alum, attended, asked some great questions, and she is now very, very happily employed at Tetra Tech. So either I will monitor the chat if you're somewhere that you would prefer to type a question in. Otherwise, please raise your hands. And I can certainly ask lots of questions to Beth, but I would rather this time be for you. And great, we have a hand. Laura.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for being here. I am a graduate student in the public health school, so I'm studying biostatistics. I guess I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about public health type positions at Tetra Tech, if any, if they're just wanted to see if that's available.
So we don't have a ton on public health, actually. One of the info sheets that I sent to Denise has some good organizations to look at, both governmental and NGO organizations. I would say for public health, I feel like I see, so Chemonics does a little bit of everything. And I understand they're mostly remote as well. Helen Keller International does some work. And then there seems to be kind of a pivot or like a break between nutrition, kind of public health, and some WASH work, and then like more hospitals, healthcare, that kind of policy work. And I know where I work, if you're more interested in the policy side, like public service delivery with health, we do that kind of work. So it's just kind of how you approach the problem of giving quality health services that'll kind of impact who you want to talk to. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm also happy to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. I have a pretty big network, having worked in international development for a while. And then I did Peace Corps in Cameroon, which at that time it was the biggest Peace Corps country in the world. So got a lot of people all over the place, and I'm happy to do introductions.
And I just put it in the chat, the presentation that you sent me, and I'm going to put in the other recruitment document. So again, this is your opportunity to ask questions. As as Beth was saying, she's got a lot of knowledge and a lot of resources. So I know this feels a little more untraditional for other people, but this is your opportunity. This is what you want to be doing. It's like a big informational interview for you. Great. Damola.
Hi, Beth. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about Tetra Tech. So I am an environmental resource policy student, and this is I'm in my first year. I'm gonna end my first year this May. So I wouldn't say that I am mid-level in the environmental policy space, but I do have some coursework under my belt. Do you feel like there are some opportunities for like entry level or, early mid-level career for someone in school at this time that I could take advantage of, apply to?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the 5 sectors that we work at ARD is environment and natural resources. So we do a lot of like anti-wildlife trafficking, forest traceability or forestry and traceability policy work with all of that. And then we've also done a lot of work on ocean plastics. But I think we actually have an opening right now for an environment and natural resources or ENR associate. So that's definitely a role that I would look at. And then just for anybody trying to get an international development, we're always looking for people with language skills and technical writing skills. And I know you'll take technical writing during your coursework, and I use it every day at work. So that's one you will use constantly. And Damola, if you apply for something, please let me know so I can let the recruiter know. I handle mostly proposal recruitment, but my boss is the person who does home office recruiting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Definitely will keep in touch.
Yep.
Marek.
There we go. I had to unmute myself. Hey, yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having us here. I, unlike most here, I am an IR graduate student, so international relations, more so than the folks here. I'm also quite a bit older than most. I retired from the Army and decided to change tack and figure something else out. So I looked over your website for the company and see what kind of positions that were open that I saw I would potentially qualify for. My experience largely is in the IT field. I've for about 20 plus years. And so I'm kind of curious to see what opportunities in that area would for you guys. I have not done any sort of environmental sciences or any sort of development work, perhaps in the limited fashion. When I was in Afghanistan, we engaged in some nation building there. I was involved in the network modernization for that country when I was there. But other than that, I'm pretty much willing to try and learn just about anything. I've always appreciated the environment in general, so I would be interested in doing some of that work if possible.
Yeah. So one of our other operating units, which is called ESI, does a lot of work in utilities, including like internet connectivity. And they're actually implementing a really large project in Ukraine right now, trying to basically get everybody connected and get their electric utilities back up and in working order. The other areas that I would see for people with kind of an IT background, so we're always looking to improve knowledge management. That's like a big growth area. And then GIS and mapping is another big area. We have, I think, 2 or 3 full-time GIS people. And
yeah, I've done work with ArcGIS before.
And one thing that I think is like really nice about working at Tetra Tech is that for most people, so you're not just So we provide our own consultants to our projects. And so there's a lot of opportunities to work in different areas, and to be like cross-trained and work on both projects, new business, and any home office like side projects as well. And for, I guess I should probably backtracking and give our other technical areas that we work on. So I said environment and natural resource protection and management, water resources and infrastructure. So that's going to be closer to just straight engineering. Democracy and governance, that's probably the biggest area that I think people at Trachtenberg school would be interested in. Land tenure and property rights. So Mark, that's one of those areas where we use GIS a lot. And agriculture and economic growth. And so like one thing we do for that land tenure and property rights is formalize people's property rights. People have been occupying land for, I mean, generations and may not have any legal standing with their government. And so we help work on that. And so like GIS and mapping, it doesn't sound like it would have like a direct impact, but it does, right on there. So I think it's really, really interesting work. And I like that as a recruiter, I get exposed to a little bit of everything, which is nice.
So how would I go about finding some of those opportunities? Your website has some jobs listed, but not quite what you're describing.
Yeah. So we're always recruiting for different roles, and it just kind of depends on when we have openings. We don't have like big seasonal hires or anything like that. That's kind of the same thing with internships. If anybody's looking, they're just when we have them, not based on a semester schedule. I can drop the chat or a link in the chat to our international development jobs specifically, so that y'all can kind of narrow the field. But we do have, I think it's 10 or 11 operating units that work in international development as well. So if it's not my unit, then I can get you introduced to the right recruiter in the other unit.
That would be super. I mean, sparked up when you mentioned Ukraine. I do speak. Granted, not the same as Ukrainian by any means, but I can understand if need be. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any sort of kind of work in that region.
So I'm going to go to the next person, and I just want to remind everybody, because we're representing so many different schools throughout GW, just before you ask your question, if you can just say which school you're a part of or what your degree is, just so Beth has that context, would be great. Neil, who I happen to know is Trachtenberg, is up next. I'll have you ask your question next, Neil.
Thank you. Yes, I am. I'm from Trachtenberg. I'm finishing up my last semester here. And I was really interested when I saw the post for Tetra Tech that I did a little research into like what y'all do. And I was really surprised to see kind of like the extensive disaster kind of program that y'all have and the work you do in like the emergency management space. So I was really interested because I see a lot of the opportunities that Tetra Tech posts are kind of more domestically focused. So I'd like to hear a little bit about kind of like what the emergency management disaster preparedness space looks like at Tetra Tech. Like what kind of projects are they working on? It looks like a lot of partnerships with municipalities. So kind of like what do those projects look like? And one thing I'm really interested in is kind of like the confluence of disaster preparedness, resiliency, and international development. So just wanted to see if there's kind of like a process kind of in place at Tetra Tech where they're trying to merge those two disciplines into like an occupational focus and trying to combine those efforts together. So it might not be the case. I just wanted to see if that was anything that was on the radar at Tetra Tech.
So our domestic work and our international work is pretty like separated. We are disaster risk reduction and response is again another growth area, especially with climate change. That fall in my unit that falls under our agriculture and economic growth. And then also sometimes our democracy and governance focus areas. So we've seen projects. We saw one pretty recently that was working in the Caribbean. Obviously with, the growth of super hurricanes and things like that, we want to make sure that people are set up for success, for weathering a storm. And then also, like having insurance, like we have FEMA flood insurance in the US, but those kind of, programs don't exist in a lot of countries. And so, setting up those systems is one thing that we do. And then, yeah, help with, like kind of urban planning kind of work is something we do a little bit of, but not as much. But yeah, if that's your area of interest and you want international development, I would look out for an agriculture and economic growth or AEG associate.
Great. We have another question. Sophia.
Hello. Excuse me. Hello, I'm Sophia. I'm actually a senior. I'm in my last semester of undergraduate right now, studying international business and international affairs.
Mhm.
And through my coursework and consulting projects, I have a lot of experience in renewable energy and the
Mhm.
energy transition.
Mhm.
And I was really excited to see Tetra Tech was coming because I know there's a lot at the kind of connection between renewable energy and international development, which is the space I'd like to be in. I
Mhm.
was wondering if there are, if there's openness at Tetra Tech and those teams for people with just undergraduate experience.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have experience consulting for, projects and things like that, that would be interesting to us. I would say the unit that you probably want to look at more is called ESI. And so when you look on that, that international development jobs link, and you see one that looks interesting to you, again, please reach out to me and I'll do the introduction to the right recruiter.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We have a question now from Stephanie.
Hi, thanks so much, Beth. My name is Stephanie Scaffa. I'm in the Elliott School for International Affairs in their mid-career master's program. I was a solid waste planner in my last career, and I was return Peace Corps as well. And I was just wondering, this is really interesting to me. I don't know a lot about Tetra Tech, and I'm just wondering if is Tetra Tech an implementer for USAID?
Yes.
Or do you work directly with communities, like not through aid?
So we do, we don't, so USAID is our biggest client for Tetra Tech overall. USAID is our largest client. And then for working directly with communities, no, we usually do it via projects, and contracts. So it doesn't have to be with USAID, but it'll usually be with another donor, Millennium Challenge Corporation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of those other donors. And we're actively working on diversifying our portfolio so we're not completely dependent on USAID funding.
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up. Do the positions that you hire for, are they mostly contract, or do they kind of vary depending? And in your experience, has there been like room for growth within the organization?
Yes. Yeah, there is a lot of room for growth within the organization. We do have a budget for people to attend conferences and get continuing education. So there's like a large appetite for that. Most of our US based positions are full-time permanent. We are starting to see some US based contract positions. It'll be clearly marked in the job ad if it's a contract or full-time permanent. And it'll usually have the start date and end date if it's a contract position, and the project itself would be named.
Beth, a question came in the chat before I go to Casey. I want to make sure we cover that. Someone asked about they're in MS in data science and wanting to know what sort of data science or data analysis work is currently being conducted at Tetra Tech, and if there's some specific areas subject areas within there that Tetra Tech works within the data science space?
Ooh, I know that's a really big field. So I know a lot of our data that is coming through to Tetra Tech is from, like we talked about, like GIS and mapping, and then also monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Those would probably be our big growth areas. And I would say also, if you like monitoring and evaluation, do it. Not a lot of people like that work. And so if you like it and you enjoy it and you're good at it, I would definitely take a look at that, because there's, USAID and contractors need to prove that their work has impact so that we can get continued funding. So it's an area that's pretty heavily focused on.
Great, thank you. Casey.
Hello, so I'm Casey. I'm a recent graduate from the Columbia College of Arts and Sciences with a degree in biology, and I'm interested in the environment and natural resources sector. And I've seen some like really cool jobs at the entry level with Tetra Tech, and I was just wondering, what sort of skills and things should I highlight to like make myself stand out? Because I know that those entry level positions get a ton of applicants.
Yeah. I would say international experience, multiple languages, and writing are probably your biggest ones. Peace Corps, a ton of my coworkers have done Peace Corps. So if you've thought about that, I highly recommend it. The other thing too is you do get, there are some scholarships that you can get from doing Peace Corps. And actually, while I wasn't offered one from GW, I did talk my way into getting a scholarship for Peace Corps, because I was fresh out of Cameroon, and I thought you could argue a price for anything, including grad school.
Nice.
We have another question, Kaylee.
Hello, I'm Kaylee Park, and I'm a Asian Studies graduate student in Elliott School. And I really wonder if I could find a position that fits to my background, because I did policy researching in DC, and then back in South Korea, I did some like project management and international business. And then like I always had the interest in renewable energy, and then like some batteries or solar panels, kind of that. So I want to know like if there is some like position related to my background.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking at renewable energy and just kind of energy in general, that ESI is probably the relevant unit. You may also want to look at, I would say like maybe that would fall out under agriculture and economic growth. Because if we're trying to get people to pivot to it, that might be where it is. But yeah, if you see something that interests you, please let me know, and I can put you in touch.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
We have 3 minutes left. Are there some other questions that people have? This is your opportunity. I love the questions. You're getting a chance to really ask very, very specific questions. And don't forget, in the chat was both handouts that Beth sent me, so make sure you get those. Other questions that people have?
If we don't have any more questions, I can maybe talk a little bit about what job applications look like from a recruiter side. So I know we all know at this point you need to write your CV and your cover letter for each specific job. So one thing that you want to do is try to mirror your language exactly to the job ad. So if it says, and actually sometimes I've seen, and this is really wonderful as a recruiter, if people have the key qualifications table on the top, if it says, I want you to have 4 years of international development experience, and then you say, 18 months with Peace Corps and 2.5 years with this one. And so you're directly answering that questions. the best advice I can give you is to try to make sure that you are directly compliant to the job ad, so you make it through the first cut. Because then as a recruiter, if you're not clearly responding to the job ad, I'm only looking at your CV for like 30 seconds. And so you need to make it like very clear. Once you make it past the first cut, that's when people are like really looking at your experience in depth, and they're like, okay, ooh, this person has, you know, French language, and that's something we really wanted, but it's not necessarily required. And so that's when you kind of get somebody who's going to advocate for you as a candidate, after you make the first cut. And it's really like, for the way that and not everybody looks at it this way, but the way that I read cover letters is I want to see what your writing style is. Is it professional? Are you, you know, directly answering any questions that we might have? That kind of thing. But yeah, and then if you have any kind of personal connection to a current staff member at that company, definitely use it. Because that, you know, DC is very networking heavy, but it's true, it's a skill you need. Whether it's through LinkedIn or in person at a happy hour, those connections will help.
Beth, we are about at time. You wanted to do this really informal to be able to answer questions this way, and this was very just really insightful for people to have these specific questions. So I want to thank you as always for your time. As Beth mentioned, she's happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, have some individual conversations. We love hearing what our alumni are doing. So thank you to everybody who's attended today. And thank you so much, Beth. Oh, someone wanted to know about your email address. I don't know if you want to drop something into the chat with your LinkedIn, and your email address would be terrific. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you guys, and good luck with the